to the Z kind of. Soccer association just means coming up and sitting in another. So we can actually call it.
That's my See, this is exactly welcome. CBT should be good. Is that impact investment? Yeah. Somebody throwing money. I was part of that process. We want to trust our future in this new direction. Stuff. No, we're not going to just hang grants. This was impact investment piece.
Cultural presentation, because that we are kind of
We
a
are,
cultural
yes.
presentation, so you can just
Because they don't want to start on
Okay.
great.
like Nanny.
That's what you talk. Like they're giving some money to the community.
For four counts. I didn't have a chance. Trigger sealing.
Cal?
I know. Janice.
We get no return on your money.
Longer so they come like to here. Remove them.
No, they was bolted.
I know.
Brand because it makes sense.
So he'd haven't but I don't see I don't see our buddy.
There you are, James.
Shall we?
There you are.
I can see myself.
You got
Yeah.
1 minute.
Zoom in.
Can't
There you
start
go.
early.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Star. Star is born.
All right. Shall we?
Up top.
Good evening. My name is Jesse Woodward, and tonight I am the acting mayor. Our actual mayor is over there. Thank you very much, John.
You're welcome.
And I just want to welcome everyone. We have a really nice evening tonight, I must say. First, I will, sorry, that was the call to order, so that's done now. And I'd like to do the acknowledgement, the Aboriginal acknowledgement. So we would like to acknowledge that,
Adopt the agenda.
sorry, so I need to adopt the agenda.
Oh.
Is that right? Yes.
Move it.
Thank you. I'd like to do the Aboriginal acknowledgement. So we would like to acknowledge the land on which we gather is the traditional and unceded territory of the Ktunaxa, the Salix, and the Sinixt peoples, and it is home to the Métis and many diverse Indigenous persons. We honor their connection to the land and the river and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. So, our first order of business tonight is the 2019 Cultural Ambassador appointment. And I'll just give a little overview of that. And that is the City of Nelson designates a cultural ambassador to represent the City of Nelson each year as one way to celebrate and embrace diversity, richness, and authentic cultural strength. Then 2019, I'll hand it over then to Joy Barrett and Sydney Black, and they're going to continue on with the presentation.
Great. Thank you for having us here tonight. The City of Nelson and its Cultural Development Committee established the Cultural Ambassador Award in recognition of local individual artists, groups, or collectives who have achieved a high standard of excellence in their artistic discipline and who are active not only in Nelson's arts and cultural community, but extend their talents to other communities and countries. We are pleased to present the 2019 Cultural Ambassador Award to Alison Gervin.
Alison, a singer, performer, musical director, and choral arranger, has lived and worked in Nelson for the last 23 years. She's performed as a featured soloist with ensembles including the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra, the Vancouver Chamber Choir, and the CBC Vancouver Orchestra. As a studio vocalist for radio, television, and feature film, and as a performer with the recent stage appearances, including a role in Hiromoto Ida's Birthday Present for Myself, and as the featured soloist in concert concert presentations of music from her CD, Fishing by the Light of Ancestors. This past summer, she directed Fireworks, a large-scale community singing event that saw the participation of over 400 singers at the Nelson and District Community Complex, and Ripple Effect, a series of progressive concerts at the Yasodhara Ashram.
Through her own work and the choir groups she leads, including the renowned choral ensemble Corazon, Allison has made a huge difference in the lives of hundreds of youth, inspiring and training them to perform at an extremely high level and encouraging them to enjoy and in many cases pursue musical studies. Funded through a CKCA major project grant, Allison is currently developing her latest projects, Quintessence, Bridge Builder, along with previous Nelson Cultural Ambassadors Hiro Ida and Slava Dovel, and composer Don McDonald. This performance will be workshopped in February and presented at the Capitol Theatre in October of 2019. Allison has truly been a gift to our community, and we can think of no one more deserving than this honor. Welcome, Allison.
I will say a few words. I'll be very brief. This is something that I was not expecting. I don't know who nominated me, but I thank them for doing such a thing. I'm really honored to have this award and join friends of mine who have been appointed to this position in the past. I look forward very much to, again, and continually promoting Nelson outside of the city limits. It's a really special place, as I know you all know, and it's not any effort at all to sing its praises outside of the city limits.
Just add to what, on a personal note, my niece was part of your Corazon group, and it was a wonderful inspiration. It was very inspirational for her. She drove all the way from Castle back and forth, and inspired her now to go on working towards a degree as a music teacher. So, I mean, that's the piece around Corazon, that when we hear their marvelous performances, we don't often hear about the inspiration that happens through that group and the dedication that you bring to the table that helps move those young people forward in their lives to do bigger and better things. Thank you very much, Allison.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask my son to come up. Joy asked if I would also be the presenter of a song, the cultural portion of your meetings this evening, and this is the very first time that up here. Yeah. This is my first time appearing with my son Dune. So.
Oh
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Elegantly.
Fantastic.
And we're not done yet, ladies and gents.
The City of Nelson and the CDC would also like to recognize with a special citation a member of the local arts and culture community whose dedicated work over the past 2 decades has fostered and furthered Nelson's vibrant culture.
Patricia Henman, who moved to Nelson in 2000, has produced, performed, and directed many successful plays which have toured throughout the region. She released her first solo album in 2011, and in 2018, as a featured artist and songwriter on the new CD Edge of Heaven, her and her 9 siblings performed in sold-out concerts across Nova Scotia. In 2019, she will be directing Mamma Mia for Black Productions. No big deal. Pat has recently been appointed as the regional board member representing theatre for the Provincial British Columbia Arts Council, an honor for both her and our city. She has been and continues to be active in Nelson's arts sector as both a volunteer and a staff member, including the executive director for the Nelson District Arts Council, board director for the Amy Ferguson Institute, the Nelson Chamber of Commerce, and currently for the Capitol Theatre as president. Pat's contribution to the overall cultural fabric of our community has been significant, and we would like to present her with a special citation for her dedicated work.
Surprise.
It is, yeah.
What do I do?
Can't wait for your song.
Oh, I'm super nervous. Thank you. Thank you very much to the city, to the CDC. I'm super pumped about this. I was told that people don't usually make a speech or anything after this, but I may never get to do this again. So I want to thank some folks. I want to thank Kelly Rebar, my friend, who initially nominated me for Cultural Ambassador. I got this wonderful special citation. Thank you so much. And I also want to thank my husband Larry, who's put up with me for so long, and my passion for theater and the arts. It's been my life besides my family. And a few friends. Anyways, I truly want to say that 40 years, this marks 40 years in professional theater for me this year. And 19 of those were spent here in Nelson. And my kids were all brought up in this community full of arts, full of theater, just full of vibrancy. I'm so happy to share the stage with you one more time, Allison Gerben, right here, which I've done many times in the past. The last thing I want to say is, as the theater rep for the BC Arts Council, I will continue to tour this province for the rest of my appointment. And as I have always done, I've always sung the praises of Nelson. We have more than we could ever dream of. When you go out there to some of these communities, and they are just struggling to get things going, I say, wow, Nelson's already got that. How did we do it? Well, I say, come and check us out and find out why our arts are so vibrant here. So I'll just continue singing the praises, and I'll steal some good stuff and bring it back to us. Thank you all very much.
It's also important to recognize the work that you've done and the tough couple of years that you've had over the last little while after your accident. And it's a miracle that you're standing here tonight, actually, and able to continue performing. And we're so blessed to have you, and it'd be wonderful if we could have all the cities to come here and
They like to
performance
come.
on and Nelson. So
We have them here.
thanks very much. Thank you.
Just a quick note that we will be presenting the Heritage Awards at, I believe it's the January 21st Committee of the Whole meeting.
All right. Well, thank you. That was really lovely. Thank you. And thank you to the winners. Amazing work for our town. So the next piece is the introduction of any late items.
We got the Civic Theater presentation.
Yep,
Jesse?
that's
That?
public participation. So the next part is public participation, and the maximum is 15 minutes. And I will just, oh, sorry. Is there anyone who is going to do a public participation? No one? Okay. We'll move on from there.
Yeah.
So the next part is, is there anybody? No? Okay. just checking. The next will be delegations. So the first one is the Civic Theater. And they're going to come up. Just gonna check here. So do you want me to do a little
Put two
summary?
chairs there.
Sure, 2 chairs.
2 chairs. They did.
Okay, so I'm just going to read the summary from the agenda. So the Civic Theater has requested the opportunity to present their request for a provisional line of credit to council. The Civic Theater is in the process of preparing to apply for a $3 million from the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program in the cultural and recreation intake to support the renovation of the Civic Theater. This is the largest grant they plan to apply for and has the greatest impact to the success of their plan to convert the existing space into 3 presentation spaces. The application deadline is January 23rd, 2019. The Society is requesting support from the city through a line of credit agreement to satisfy conditions of the Investing in Canada grant application. So with that, on to you.
Great, thanks very much. Good evening, thanks for your time and considerations. As a preface, it's really wonderful to be sharing the stage tonight. This night is focused on culture and some of the accomplishments that we've seen in this community and how this town has really grown in some of the infrastructure and the accomplishments that we've seen in the cultural arena. And so it's great to be here on this night in particular. My name's Brian May. I'm the External Affairs Chair for NCTS, and I'm joined by Eleanor Stacey, our Executive Director. And she's going to lead you through a PowerPoint presentation on our current plans and the requests. As a short preface, we last presented to Council in March 2018. At that time, we were simply updating Council and the public on the growth of our operations, our programs, as well as to begin the crucial conversations with the city at that time about developing our partnership. That was the beginning of the groundwork for our 3-screen capital expansion back last March. Since then, we've kept in constant contact with administration, sharing information, liaising with other parties together, exploring opportunities, deciding how best to move forward in the best interests of the theater, of the city, of the community, of the building itself. And a few months ago, the city partnered with us on a Rural Dividend Fund grant. That partnership, it didn't require any financial outlay or commitments by the city since it was already built on the previous support that we've received from the city and on our tenancies arrangements together. We hope to hear from that group, the Rural Dividend Group, fairly shortly. But that funding, if successful, will be put towards our capital design and project costing work to make us shovel ready for the next step. Now we're preparing for a much larger application, as Council has heard, the Invest Canada Recreation and Culture Program. This is geared exactly to our needs. But the timing was to a small degree a bit problematic because it was announced right as we're heading into elections. And elections were just underway, and the deadline, as you said, is January 23rd, requiring detailed work to be completed now over Christmas. So we've been consulting and learning more while Council was in transition, and now we're pleased to be talking to you today and to give you some more detail on it. And I'll let Eleanor take it from here with the PowerPoint.
I think I can do from here, hey? Okay.
Should be able to.
So what I'd like to do today is bring you up to speed on Nelson Civic Theatre Society's work to operate and diversify the Civic Theatre, and of course, as noted, make a request that comes for us at a watershed moment
for the future of our venue. So, how do I?
The arrow keys should.
Down arrow. There we go.
Everybody watched me do that, right? You all got to watch me do that.
It's a teamwork.
This is great. Also, Sydney, you guys are a really hard act to follow. I feel like we're like the not so funny group. But anyway, so first, a quick introduction to who we are and what we do. We're a registered charity with a mission to present film and other cultural content and to operate, renovate, and protect the Civic Theatre. Our programs and services are diverse and growing and have nicely developed into a three-pronged plan that includes cultural, social, and economic activities. Since we reopened our venue in 2013, we've focused on two main things: staying open, which is a good idea to start, and planning our capital renovation. However, we've found that these things are not mutually exclusive. For instance, in order to appeal to funding prospects or even meet guidelines for many funding programs, we've needed to show how we are meeting our charitable purposes and bringing value to our community. And at the same time, use of our venue for public events is highly restricted by some of our distributors, making it difficult to program anything beyond feature films throughout much of the year. That restriction would be allayed with more spaces. So it's something of a catch-22. We need income to support our community programs and services, but are restricted in our scheduling by the very same content that underwrites it. It's a bit tricky. So to build our case, we keep a good record of our achievements and accolades. You can't see this very well in there. I hope you guys can see it better than I'm seeing it here. But since our society was founded 6 years ago, we've worked hard to create an organization that brings value and opportunity to our community in many different ways. We've developed the space, including an enormous amount of fundraising to make the theatre work well in its current state. We've also had some significant issues, such as a failing ceiling and some antiquated systems that need to be upgraded, but by and large, our space is pretty fantastic right now. With our recent screen and sound system upgrades, it's safe to say that our viewing and listening experiences are unparalleled in the region. And of course, we have great seats. We've been open and busy typically 360 days a year, with screenings and a wide array of non-cinematic events, often using our fiber optic internet connection to live stream or exchange in real time with people in other places. We host many community rentals, and we partner with other community groups on events. A few examples from the last few years include Nelson District Arts Council's Rural Artist Support Weekend, Kalen Hospice Society's Liminal Learning Labs, the BC Alliance for Arts and Culture's live-streamed Regeneration Arts Symposium, and the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity's live-streamed Truth and Reconciliation Summit. And in fact, for that last item, we were the only organization in all of British Columbia to screen it. We've also begun a regional economic initiative to bring together the Kootenay screen-based industry and host monthly meetups for filmmakers and other screen-based workers to meet, show work, and share knowledge. In the works for 2019 are two exciting programs that continue to build our reputation and impact as a cultural media arts center, including a planned periodical training program for theater and film technical safety and education, and also an artist residency in summer 2019. And we'll be announcing more about that in the coming months. And finally, our community engagement has been the most important thing to us since the very beginning. The numbers speak for themselves. We employ more than 20 people in full and part-time work, many of whom are in their very first jobs ever. We engage many volunteers, ranging from youth to retirees, with opportunities almost every single day of the year. Our membership is currently sitting at around 1,200, which is a testament to the value that people see in us. And those members make up only an estimated 25% of the 180,000 visitors we've welcomed through our doors to date. These are not small numbers for a town our size. In short, we're a busy place. We're busy in the lobby, on screen, and in the office. We've been Newsmaker of the Year. We've been a consistent Platinum and Gold winner in the Kootenay Business Awards and a finalist for the Nelson Chamber of Commerce Awards the last 2 years. So, our capital plan. At the same time, we've been steadily working towards our larger capital project. And this process has perhaps taken longer than we might have expected a few years ago, but as a young organization, it wasn't always apparent what internal development and external cultivation and communications were going to be needed to get to the next step. That said, I think we're in a really good place right now. We have our structural pieces in place, including charitable status, audited financial statements. We have a great board and staff team, and we've all worked to build the operational infrastructure we need to run our venue and undertake a capital campaign. We've worked to build communication pathways with staff and elected officials at all levels of government, and we have communication in place with other prospects, such as Columbia Basin Trust. We have 5 years of program and service history under our belt, and strong and supportive relationships with other community organizations, both locally and further afar. And finally, we have a business plan that articulates our case for support and our vision for the future. So in short, we're ready to go, I like to say. So this is kind of interesting, and board members who are here can attest to just how much work we've done to understand how our model will help our organization grow in the future. So it's important to say we're actually at a point right now where we need to move forward. And this is where we start to get into some of the scary numbers. So when my role as executive director was added to help move the society forward to the 3-screen future, the board knew that our time with our current model would be limited. We've actually had better financial outcomes year to year than might have been expected, but we still run deficits with our current single-screen model. Accordingly, some of you might have actually received our annual appeal, through which this year we're going about what most other cultural charities do, asking for a little bit of operating support just until we're able to complete our renovation. As you can see here, our current model, the single screen, the one on the left, operates in a deficit. The $13,000 loss here is representative of our 2017-18 year, which ended in July. In this reality, we need to fundraise to be solvent, and we're limited in programming because of restrictions from distributors. When we add a second screen, which is the middle circle there, this is an option we considered, but it proved to not have the best return on investment for the construction cost savings of not adding a third space. But in this particular model, we can expect to be solvent, and programmatic restrictions would relax substantially. However, we wouldn't have enough space to be able to make the commitment to our community that our charitable mission requires. And when we add 2 more spaces, we can finally expect to fully fulfill our mission. Furthermore, we'll have the capacity to make investments into our community programming and initiatives. And this is really where things get exciting. And while we certainly don't want to count any chickens before they hatch, there are opportunities here for us to really help bolster local initiatives. So a few examples. I love getting into sort of the visionary stuff because that's where we start to look at what the future could hold. We could host robust artistic development residencies. We could become a known commissioning partner in new Canadian work across diverse media. We could become an associate producer on Kootenay-made films, potentially receiving royalties for distribution, which could be reinvested in future film projects. We could support local initiatives in knowledge sharing, in media education, and digital equality. The list just goes on. I really think the sky is the limit in that corner. And what's exciting about these future plans is that with more spaces, we also get to keep more money in our local economy. I'd estimate that of our $700,000 budget last year, $400,000 of it cycled back into staff, services, and businesses in Nelson. With our 3-screen venue in place, that number will double, and neither of these estimates include the adjacent income to local businesses when people go out for dinner or coffee or drinks before or after attending events in our space. So, looking at investing in Canada. I know this is a really exciting slide, right? There's a lot of writing in there. So today our focus, of course, is on how to get this project to happen, and specifically on the unique opportunity that's currently available to us through the Investing in Canada infrastructure program. We've had detailed conversations, Brian and I, with program officers in the community, culture and recreation, and the rural and northern communities programs, and we feel we have a good understanding of the program goals and our own eligibility for this funding. And while there's a lot of funding available and the program's been established as a 10-year opportunity, funding amounts from one year to the next are, as they describe, notional. Our understanding from the program officers is that this effectively also means they may be dispersed more quickly than stated in their guidelines should the opportunities arise. And it's also expected that the program will be in very high demand, so making our application in the January 2019 intake is important. The key points that the program officers made to us in regards to our proposal were, that municipal support is critical and that a letter of support is not enough. They also recommended that we apply for no more than $3 million. And after, of course, we stopped and asked that question again, we thought that was a pretty nice number to start working with. Yeah. If we're the principal applicant, as opposed to the municipality, which would be able to apply for a higher percentage, our request can make up no more than 65% of the project cost. And we believe that there is substantial value in this opportunity, not only for us, but also for the City of Nelson. So first, the city owns the building that we're in, so all these improvements will add to a space that's already in desperate need of upgrades and will add value to a city asset. We're ready. To our knowledge, there are no other large-scale cultural projects in Nelson that are at the same state of preparedness that we are. Our project makes sense, it's necessary now, and it's ready to go. And finally, the value of our project can act as a contribution towards future proposals that the city may wish to make for the Civic Center Rec Campus as a phase one of larger projects. So finally, down to our request. What we're requesting today is approval in principle of a $1 million line of credit through the Municipal Finance Authority, specifically to secure the funding we're seeking through this proposal to Investing in Canada. Our business plan outlines an overall project cost of $3 million, and while the numbers reflected in that plan are the most current we have, they're actually not in line with construction cost increases of 35 to 40% that have ensued since that estimate was prepared in 2014. Accordingly, we expect that our project will likely cost more in the area of 4.2 to 4.6 million. In the coming month, as we prepare our proposal, we will finalize the expected cost of the project, and it will define exactly how much financing through the city we will need, but 1 million would be the absolute ceiling. It will take the better part of the year for Investing Canada to deliberate on our request, during which time we intend to fundraise towards that amount. It's our hope that we'll not actually need all of this. We'll need far less in financing. Our fundraising plan will not suffice as matching contribution for the proposal, we've been told, which is why we need your help at this juncture. So I just want to look a little more closely at what we're proposing. Our current expectations, as I said, are that our project will cost up to $4.6 million. At this point, we have two other requests already in process. $245,000 through the BC Rural Dividend, which I'd hoped to hear about by now, and I've called to find out, but we should all be hearing about that, I think, soon. I think everybody's in that boat, right? We also, that was for the development of our architectural plans specifically. We also have an estimated $300,000 that we are in conversation about with CBT. It's not confirmed, but we're continuing to talk about them to their commitment to the project. And in addition to the up to $3 million that we want to request from Investing in Canada, up to $1 million will need to come from financing or fundraising, or a combination of both. These two larger numbers will be adjusted to ensure that our Investing in Canada request makes up no more than 65% of the project. So our timeline is as follows, and that's really not very big on there. I have to remember that next time, make our font bigger. Our proposal, of course, is due in January. We expect to hear very soon from BC Rural Dividend. If that proposal is successful, we'll begin our plan development in February 2019. If it's not, we'll incorporate plan development into our Investing in Canada proposal. At the same time, we will begin our major fundraising towards the $1 million. And we expect to hear from Investing in Canada in late 2019. If awarded, we'll begin building and may need access to a line of credit at that time, depending on how our fundraising has progressed. Fundraising will continue throughout the construction process. We will close our existing space for a period of 4 months to demolish our ceiling, build a demising wall and a new technical booth, and rehabilitate the space. This is likely to happen in March, but the date is to be determined. And if the closure happens in March, Theatre 1 would then reopen in July, and the construction of the other theatres would begin. On this timeline, all 3 spaces would be open and complete by March 2021. And of course, we want to fundraise. So this is an overview for our plan for fundraising. As you can see, the major grant section at the top reflects our funding plan with Investing in Canada, Columbia Basin Trust, and the BC Rural Dividend Program. Beyond those funds, it also shows our plan to fundraise for the remainder of the money needed to complete the project. I should note that we already have some funds to go towards the school, including $75,000 from Heritage BC to rehabilitate our ceiling, a gift of $4,000 recently from Nelson Home Hardware, and at least $60,000 of our own savings. So it's already $139,000 that's in this contributed toward this goal, and we haven't even started yet. So that's nearly 14%. It was really nice to do that math and realize we'd moved along already pretty well. Looking at our cash flow, I'm optimistic about our ability to fundraise, but I'm also pragmatic. We need to be methodical in our approach to fundraising, but if we come up short, we may need to access this line of credit. The good news is that if we do need to borrow, we can carry the debt. So this is the projected income that we have from our future 3-screen venue in a typical year. This is a cash flow projection instead of a budget, just to focus on our ability to serve debt. Again, interesting to note that our current combined box office and concession income is in the area of $480,000 a year. In this future model, the number jumps up to a total of $1.1 million. And of our overall income of $1.26 million, we expect in the area of $800,000 to stay in Nelson through jobs and local service expenses, which is pretty exciting. At the Municipal Finance Authority rate that's current right now of 3.2%, if we borrowed the full $1 million, which we already know is very unlikely, it would cost us $9,748 per month for a total of $116,984 per year for 10 years. In this scenario, we'd also see a decrease in programming staff costs until we have a larger net on the year. And of course, if we borrow less, we'll program more with the difference. And so in summary, our achievements to date show that we have traction and momentum and are meeting local interests and needs. We've done the work to prepare for the project and fundraising campaign, and we're ready to move forward. Development in our space is critical to our charitable mission and will secure our solvency for the future. Development of our space benefits the City of Nelson because of the improvement in our shared asset and the value of our development to future civic center or recreational campus proposals. And we can carry debt if needed, but we'll focus on fundraising so we can maximize program and service delivery. And finally, approval of a line of credit from the City of Nelson is key to our January 2019 proposal. And so at that, I'd just like to say thank you. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them if I'm permitted at this point.
Questions? Just trying to process which one to ask first.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit of information. Yeah.
Through the chair. Thank you for that presentation. It was really well done. Do you have a sense of like some sort of risk and like factor in that the requirement to carry the debt? Like, is it with the confidence level? Like, what are we talking about?
So there's all sorts of ways in which the project could fail, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for one, we could not get the $3 million. Of course, at that point, we wouldn't be likely asking to start that line of credit because we'd still need to do some fundraising. We could try to fundraise all year and raise nothing more than the $139,000 we already have. I think that's really unlikely because this is what we're going to start doing on January 24th when the proposal's in. Right. You know, that's possible too. I had a recent conversation with Kelvin from CBT who said, well, what happens if you build 3 screens and you don't have a profit? Like, what happens if you aren't solvent? And I said, well, we're a charity. We'll do what charities do. We'll fundraise. We'll find grant funding. So what's interesting about us is that we ultimately have a more diverse portfolio potential than any nonprofit I've ever worked for. I think that we have a really wise board. You know, we work very, very closely together. We talk almost every day about aspects of this project. I think that we will be looking at our risk all along and making sure that we minimize and mitigate risk at every step.
Right.
So.
When we did we did a major business plan, but part of that plan was also to create some smaller documents. One of them was called a viability analysis, which was to take all of the assumptions within the business plan and say, you know, how reasonable are these assumptions that we can be making X dollars more income with a second screen, X dollars more with a third. And we put together entire scenarios for what would be playing in the second theater and in a third theater. How would our operations costs? Operations costs don't double because you have two theaters, because you're selling the same concession staff, the same, et cetera. So the estimates were actually done fairly conservatively and fairly, we actually get better results locally on some movies than they see internationally. We get continuous people, people coming on a 4-week run for a movie, whereas internationally you might see people coming for 1 week and stopping. So we use the more conservative estimates. So when all the way along creating these scenarios, we tried to say these are reasonable estimates, and that's what we're basing off. So we could handle the financing at $9,000 or $10,000 a month, and we think they're pretty reasonable risk-free estimates, but it is a business proposition.
Yeah.
But it is essential for us to have this grant at this point, because that's what they need to see. That's what ISIT needs to see at this stage. We hope, and we don't intend to actually use it, but we have to have, they want to see that if they can lend up, they can give us up to 65%, that we're guaranteed 34% elsewhere, either cash on hand right away or a line of credit back, behind us. So, but we think that we've looked at the risks fairly carefully.
Just to follow up
Yep.
on that. So with the 3 screens, do you imagine, like I can imagine trying to host like a film festival or that kind of thing is difficult with 1 screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 3 screens, part of the vision, I understand, is to start hosting more events that are like film festivals. Is it that part of it? I'm sure it is, but in terms of regular programming, would that be something, like, for example, I imagine like an outdoor, like a mountain biking film festival, and then a couple weeks later you have like some sort of cultural film festival, and then you could just kind of keep running through the cycle of them. Is that, first of all, is that something that's often done? Is that something you've thought about?
No, go for it.
We're a little bit unusual in Canada, but one of the things that I found really interesting is looking at cultural media arts centers like ours in the United States, and they seem to be ahead of us in this particular corner. We actually are part of a field of organizations that function the way that we do. And what I find so interesting is that they aren't commercial or independent film. They do a whole lot of different stuff. And so you can certainly see those kinds of things happening at the same time. What 2 gives us is the possibility of showing Star Wars for 4 weeks and the other 9 films that everybody else wanted to see.
Right.
I'll just say that's a gripe we've heard constantly over
Yeah.
the Christmas holidays for the last couple of years. But with 3, we're also able to program, like, say, those back-to-back festivals you're talking about while those other things are going on, because ultimately the commercial work is what makes us our income. But the more independent fare, the quirkier stuff, it's funny because like a mountain bike film festival in Nelson, that would actually be a really good income generator for us. It's sort of a funny example,
Yeah.
but we can do the things that may be riskier because we have the constant. So having the 3 spaces, it opens that whole world up for us.
Yeah, I think my mind was opened up quite a bit just in the last week with the Free Solo, the climbing movie. It was
Real Rock. And,
yeah, and the Real Rock tours, they sell out, and they're
oh, it's tremendous. And what's interesting, she used the word unusual. I prefer the word unique. That in the States there are groups like this, but in BC you're not going to find, and Nelson's unique, and we see it as support unique and create something new that can become a template for some other places. But that third, it's not just being able to show other films or film festivals, but you could have TED Talks. We want to become a dialogue center where people can be coming in and talking about health concerns or municipal planning concerns, et cetera. One thing that happens, and this is the catch-22 part, the single screen, you'll get the Disneys and the Foxes saying, here's your theater, but we don't even want you using it in the daytime. So if we wanted to hold a TED Talk, we wanted to have a dialogue, a community dialogue, we couldn't even hold it in the daytime because they lock our theater down. They demand a certain amount of money from us, and they demand, the space. If we had a second theater or third theater, then we've got more control. Now we can start doing education. We can start working with Selkirk College on educational aspects. Start working with the screen-based industry to be using it as a development space. Start using it for TED Talks. Start using it for other dialogues that the community wants. Right now, we wanted to hold recently with the Chamber of Commerce, we're talking about doing a talk on the proportional representation. We couldn't find the time in our schedule. We couldn't release any time in our schedule in order to have that community dialogue. If we have 2 or 3 screens, all of a sudden all of those avenues open up. So the third screen The second place could be used for a lot of community things. The third screen would be a lot of community development and programs, not just film festivals for biking, but so many more things. And the business just becomes the basis for that, to support it.
Great, thank you.
Through the chair. Brian, you touched on, just going through the presentation, you have 50 employees. You think you've got your operational costs on expansion covered. Is there an employment opportunity here for all of a sudden 3 screens, more people? Can you touch on that?
Eleanor can answer that better, but the one thing that worries us, that bothers me the most, is if we don't want to use the line of credit, because if we use the line of credit, that's $10,000 a month that we're putting up. That means we probably have to lay staff off. So our programs will drop. You know, there's a lot of programs we want to run. If we're having to, for a 10-year period, while we're paying that funding back, we would have to possibly drop staff in the programming end of things in order just to be able to make that end meet. So that's why we are really gung-ho on not using that financing. But as far as increasing employment, in the programming areas and the screen-based film industry development, we're looking to hopefully hire someone soon in that area. And Eleanor can talk more about that, yeah.
It kind of goes back to that question of, you know, it's only, the sky really is the limit. It really is only limited by our creativity and our ability to put together programs that are of value to the area. So my expectation is that we will invest in mission-driven areas of development so that we have more programs and services. So as it is right now, as an example, we have a part-time employee who runs our screen-based industry program, specifically through funding that we received through City Council with the CIP program. And that role would be really wonderful to have be full-time. And part of actually our rural dividend application, aside from the plans being $245,000 of it, there was another portion of that that actually was to expand our reach for screen-based industry, to start to build these SBI groups in other parts of the basin, because the more groups that we have working together, the better we can source locally services, rentals, trade, spaces, things like that, and actually start to build more of a regional industry. That's the reason why I refer to it as an economic initiative, because that's what it is. So if you think of the spin-offs from that, is actually quite substantial. But even just within our own space, you know, if we have 3 screens operating, our front of house shifts are already going to be longer. We'll start earlier, we'll have more screenings, we'll have more shows, we'll have more capacity for different kinds of programming. We'll have the ability financially to be able to start more substantial festivals. We'll obviously have more content we have to tell the community about, and need a communications person. So there's all sorts of pieces to it, but I think it's a good economic opportunity.
Thank you.
Mayor Dooley.
Thank you very much. I was just sort of reflecting a little bit there on early on in my time at City Hall, and I mean, you've basically taken a municipal asset and pulled it out of the ashes. Is what's happened over the last number of years since the society took it over. It was a constant pain in the backside for the municipality for a long time before that, with the various operators, and they would close and open, et cetera, et cetera. And it's good to see that, you know, that you've got it sort of back on its feet, but I don't think you were pulling the wool over anybody's eyes when you reestablish it, that 3 spaces were critical to the future of the operation going forward. And so it's no surprise to me that you'd be coming forward with this presentation tonight based on the history of the facility, and your request from day one has always been that 3 screens was going to be the only model that would probably work and keep the space viable and give you the capacity to serve the community, and also keep the building in reasonable condition as well. So I'm glad to see the business plan that you've brought forward here tonight, and the initiatives that you have going forward, because again, we were discussing earlier tonight about different opportunities in our community and in surrounding community, but you know, as Councillor Luchtenberg was talking about the whole outdoor recreation piece and climbing walls and mountain biking that was brought up tonight, you know, there's a shift in culture, and I think you can help fill some of those gaps through film as well, and create an economy that will support our local businesses, as well as broaden our minds as residents of the city of Nelson. So I like your idea going forward, and hopefully it'll be successful.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Yeah, when we first came to council in March, our big comments were about asset management, that this is one of your assets and you've got a partnership that's managing that asset with you to make it a, sustainable building and a sustainable use in the community. And then there's so many things that are such a diverse amount of content that we can be doing through the theater. And the industry has also changed over the last 6 years, making it even more critical. The amounts that develop that, the film presenters that they want from the theater, the rules they put on. So the current market is oriented towards larger theaters. You have to work within those models. And so even the last 6 years, the market's changed. That makes this a crucial thing at this stage. And, but it's taken us 5 or 6 years, I think, to build the operations, to build our history, to get everything in place to do this. We wanted to have this vision 5 or 6 years ago. We weren't ready for it. Now the business operations there, the theater's there, we've invested a lot into it, and now we're ready to do it. So our big step now is in January, making that application, and just getting the city behind us would allow them, that's what they want to see. So that's what we want to present to them in January. And then in the next couple of weeks, we want to hold a lot of discussions with administration on exactly how to phrase this. The administration is very experienced in putting together grants on exactly how much to ask for, exactly how to phrase it, and so we're going to really appreciate their vision and their experience in putting this final touches together.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I just want to say I really was very impressed with your presentation. It was really well researched, and just from a personal standpoint, I went to that theater when I was a child. I think I saw Lassie there in 1974. It's a long time ago. Yeah. Had one speaker. Yeah. So it's come along with.
Still have that speaker.
You might, yeah.
Well, we do.
You do?
Yeah.
Still there.
We don't use it.
It's called the voice of the theater.
The
Oh,
voice,
it's the
right?
voice of the theater.
But thank you very much. It was a really great presentation. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Take care.
So, Sarah Whitten said I need to make sure that I pass a resolution to move.
Receipt.
Sorry. Right. So pass a resolution to vote to the next regular meeting.
I move.
Move. Seconder? Great. All in favor? Great. Thank you. Sorry. All right. So the next item is the library. Just going to read a little summary here.
She'll bring it up.
I think it's the computer is malfunctioning. Give me a second here.
We have it on a thumb drive if you need it. No,
Just one sec. I just am trying to get to the agenda here.
Is it not loading again?
I got it. All right. So the summary from the agenda is that each year, as part of the city's budget process, the city's chief librarian, Tracy Tarian, thank you, sorry, presents to council with the proposal provisional budget.
Right.
So, on to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for welcoming us, and yes, tough acts to follow.
You emptied
Anyway, we're here.
something you said, or what?
Yeah,
You just
I know.
emptied the place here. Next time you come, make sure you're first.
Yes, thanks for allowing us this opportunity. And as Jesse said, my name is Tracy Terrian, the Chief Librarian. And I'd like to introduce Christine Danaka, our Library Board Chair. Start
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, so thank you to Mayor and Council for allowing us the opportunity to do the presentation tonight. We really appreciate, from a board perspective, the long-standing and hopefully continuing support from everyone in relation to the library and everything it provides to the community. And we look forward, of course, with continuing to work with people we've been working with, as well as new people, including Keith, who I understand will be joining us as the city liaison. So we look forward.
I look forward to it.
Great. So Tracy's going to, focus on the bulk of the content of the presentation. I'm going to just make a few comments from time to time to support from a board perspective.
Thanks, Christine. So the last time I had this opportunity to present to you about the library, we focused on what the library does, how we're governed, our budget. So tonight I'm rather focused on our strategic plan. We didn't have much time to talk about that. Some highlights from 2018 and some of our plans for 2019. So talking about the strategic plan and how it came about, in 2016, the board and staff started the whole process of developing a strategic plan. And they did that through community consultations. Over 900 residents answered a library survey. 85% of those were library members. And a number of things surfaced from those community surveys. Different things were individuals wanted to see extended hours of the library, including Sundays, more parking at the library. They wanted to see more group study spaces and more areas for seating and quiet areas also for people to do work. They wanted us to keep a focus and priority on access to the public computers and our Wi-Fi system. And also they made lots of comments about our excellent staff and how we assist our community members. They also told us we weren't very good at raising the profile of the library and all the different services that we do offer, particularly our online services. The other area that we looked at, we did some research on trends of library services. And these three issues here rose to the top, that creative side and the knowledge creation that libraries are focusing on now. So rather than just being an agency that pushes out information, we're supporting individuals to create that information and share knowledge. Of course, our literacy and lifelong learning in libraries and digital resources and training. So after those processes, the board and staff came together to develop the strategic plan. And these three strategic priorities were developed: community needs, spaces to connect, and sustainability. And so moving forward, in 2017, when we started, the board and staff were tasked with creating some objectives. And sorry, I've got my thing wrong. So while we were creating these objectives, we really wanted to keep in mind what the community told us through our surveys. And they specifically targeted our digital offerings, and they wanted us to grow those, but really not at the expense of our physical collection. So that means they wanted to keep seeing books in the library. And they also wanted the library to continue to grow as a community hub, creating those group spaces, but not at the expense of having quiet individual areas for people to work. They wanted us to be an active leader in the provision of leading-edge technology and training, really rather than waiting for trends to drive the need in our community. And they wanted us to expand our focus on traditional language literacy to broader literacy areas like digital literacy and financial literacy. So community needs. This focus is centered on community outreach, developing and maintaining community partnerships, reviewing our current practices regarding collection development and program offerings, and being connected to that larger library world where we're exposed to trends from libraries, nationally and internationally, and giving us that edge so we're able to adapt to those trends. So in 2018, we supported these objectives through a number of different services and activities. And one of those I know I've mentioned to you in the past is Gale Courses, which is one of our new online learning tools that we provide to library members. So they're 6-week instructor-led free online courses, focusing on professional development or personal development. Our adult programs, we switched a bit, or switched our focus from primarily being literary programs to more knowledge-based workshops. So, for example, we'd have a local expert in talking about estate planning or hospice care or retirement planning. Our digital training, we continued, of course, with that, helping individuals learn to access our online library, how to download ebooks, audiobooks, how to access their streaming videos. But we also partnered with CBAL to develop a new type of training rather than that traditional classroom setting where here's a computer and today we're going to teach you how to attach an email. We found that wasn't very effective anymore. So because there's so many people with different devices, different skill levels, having them all sit in a classroom in front of a laptop really wasn't very effective. So with CBAL, we developed a new model where it was one-on-one training, and we were able to do that with staff and also volunteers. So it's really, adopting that train the trainer model, and we hope to expand on that in 2019 because we found it really effective. And for kids and youth, we've developed our STEAM programming, so that's science, technology, arts, and math programming, and we were able to do that through local grants, through our Kootenai Library Federation. We purchased coding robots and some laptops for a teen and tech program, and also we've injected some low-tech programs also. Lego and Kiva blocks or planks are available whenever the library is open downstairs in the kids' room, and you'll see lots of kids participating in that. And also through our community partnerships, a need was identified in Nelson for individuals who are having difficulties accessing knowledge or accessing services, So, someone having problems finding out or downloading different government documents online or finding out how to access certain health services or legal advice. And they were finding it hard to navigate all that online information. So through a pilot project, the library is hosting what we're calling a service navigator in the library, and they're there once a week on Wednesdays for about 4 hours to help individuals navigate all the services in our community. And it was a slow start because people are just getting used to the service, but we have seen it growing in the last few weeks. So Spaces to Connect. This is about our library facility, our physical space, and also the library going out into the community. And throughout the whole strategic planning process, it was made really evident that there's a need for the library to address its current physical space in the coming years. Some of the options that we threw around were including creating pop-up libraries or utilizing partner space to host library programs, expanding our current space, or all these ideas we've actually dabbled a little bit into in 2018, and Christine will speak more later on about really the board's focus in 2019 to look at our current space and how we can improve that. So in 2018, we made some minor changes in the adult area upstairs in the library. By rearranging our collection, we were able to remove a few shelving units, which created more open space and developed clearer sight lines, and we were able to add more seating. Now, library users are using the library in a different way now. They're not only just coming into the library, quickly looking for something to read, checking that book out and leaving. What's happening now is they're staying longer. They're coming in to meet people, to work together or work individually, They're using our public computer stations or bringing their own devices to work in the library. So that means they're staying longer in the library and again, using the space differently. So that's why we've been creating more seating area in the library, allowing people to do that. Yeah, and we continue always to evaluate how we're using our space. So you'll probably see some more changes in 2019 too. So we're really trying to balance that need of traditional library services, offering children's programming and books, with the new needs or what people are telling us and how they're using the library with more digital offerings and providing group workspace or individual workspace. Another part about the library, of course, is our outreach services. So we continue to do that on a monthly basis. We visit Mountain Lake and Lakeview senior residents to provide books and audio books for seniors. Our staff go out to schools and do visits and provide some workshop to kids at school on online safety or the value of researching properly online. And also schools visit the library. Our staff also go out in the community to seniors fairs or family fairs to promote the library and remind people of all the different services that we offer. We also go to the Slocan Valley once a month for adult programming and also for children's programming. And we provide a delivery service to residents of the Slocan Valley through a pickup and delivery of books that we use the Heritage Credit Union for that. So the last point on here is ensure the safety of all library staff through support from the board. In 2018, library staff developed a number of new policies and procedures to address safety issues for staff and the public. And really this was to help mitigate disruptive behavior in the library, and we've been successful with some of those new policies and procedures. And here, sustainability. I think I'll pass this over to Christine to talk a bit about some of the advocacy the library board has been doing.
Okay.
Around funding.
Yeah, so I was going to just quickly touch on, in 2018, from a board perspective, one of the things that we really focused on is governance. And you heard that in the previous presentation as well, that when you really have, ambitious strategic plan, which we do, you need to be properly organized and create the foundations for, effective goals, objectives, work plans to support your, movement towards your ultimate strategic objectives. So, we did a great big focus this year on that, and I really believe that we have positioned ourselves effectively on a go forward to meet our ultimate strategic objectives and really are prepared for our 2019 focuses. And our focuses in 2019 are about funding, facilities, and relationship building. And, again, it was very interesting listening to the Civic Theater and their journey, and certainly there's some common themes here. From a facilities perspective, going to what Tracy said, libraries of the future are going to be very different than libraries of today. And so we're in this transitional period where we need to meet current needs, but we also need to be visionaries in terms of what's coming next. And so if you can imagine, lending out books, tools, seeds, there's a whole different model and the potential for us to be supporting the community and continuing to be a critical community asset, if we have the right type of facility. So that's just kind of a space issue. But then when you think about not only like the digital resources, but things like creativity spaces or, common spaces, and, you need to be able to, similar to the Civic Theater, trying to have 3, screens, we also are in a situation where we need to think about how we create a space and work with other groups in 2019, including obviously staff and council and mayor, in terms of getting feedback and working together and how we could create something that meets and continues to meet the community needs, because the library is, you know, a place that allows access to everybody. And it is really critical from a community perspective because of the number of services that it does provide to people. So going back to funding, and I know Tracy wants me to cover this also, I'll talk about that. You know, there's a few challenges and you can talk about, you know, how funding levels, especially provincially, you know, they've stagnated. Like, you know, we do a lot more with kind of the same pot of money, and I think we do it very successfully. But, you know, we really do appreciate the city's support, especially in conversations with Minister of Education or, you know, other provincial, you know, representatives to continue to support ongoing provincial funding and hopefully increase at some minimal level so that we can even keep up with basic, you know, cost of sort of living increases over time. So that's one aspect of funding. And we obviously do our own advocacy through the Kootenai Library Foundation, the BC Library Trustee Association. You know, we're right in there too, but we definitely support or appreciate the support where you can provide that as well. And then the other challenge locally is just Area E. You know, we've worked well with the director in Area E, and we continue to try and find ways to, you know, balance the fact that, you know, Area E, you know, chose not to participate, but on the other hand, support, you know, children who need books and you know, other ways to allow people to access the services in a fair way with the other areas who have, you know, chosen to participate and support the library services. So those are two areas that we'll focus on as well in 2019. And just lastly, and I'll turn it back to Tracy, in 2020 it will be our centennial. So that's a very exciting time. And 2019 will have a focus on ways that we can hopefully, you know, celebrate and highlight, you know, a bunch of not only past but future possibilities of the library. So I'm excited about that and look forward to it. So, okay, turn it back to you, Tracy.
Great, thanks, Christine. So now I'm just going to take a couple slides here to look at what's happening now in 2018 and some membership statistics. So here we've got it divided into the different areas. So as you can see, the highest area for our membership is the City of Nelson. If you combine the population for Nelson, Area F and H, our library membership equals 54% of that population, or that population. So 54% of that population are library members, and those are active members. We don't, you know, they have had to use their library card in the last 2 years. And on average, the library registers 90 new individuals each month. Some other key statistics here. So these Nelson Library statistics are very reflective of library statistics nationally or provincially, nationally, and internationally. You'll see that the number of people using the facility is on the rise, on the increase. But the number of items, it should actually say number of physical items borrowed are slowly declining. But that's being made up for the number of online library usage. So that's the number of ebooks people are downloading, audiobooks, and how many times they access and use our databases or online learning tools. You'll see a large increase here in what we call interlibrary loans. So that's items that we borrow from other libraries and items that libraries borrow from our library. And in the end of 2016, there was a change in our integrated library system that allowed our members to access directly the collections of other libraries. So in the past, if you wanted a book from another library that you couldn't, one you couldn't find in Nelson, you'd have to ask library staff to do that search for you and place a hold on it for you. So now what happens, you can just look and search the Nelson Public Library catalog. If you can't find the item in our library, it will show up from another library in the same search. And so if that book is available only in Prince Rupert, you can click on place a hold, and it will be sent to the Nelson Public Library, and it'll be there for you to pick up, just like any other regular book you would do in the Nelson Public Library. So this has opened up a huge collection to our community, and it has also actually increased, though staff no longer have to manage that, they do have to manage the incoming books, right? So that means they're handling a lot more books, unpacking them, tracking the paperwork, and then packing them back up. But it's been you consider the library space, and it's really only a finite amount of space that we can hold books in the facility. So the same amount of number of books that we put in each year, we have to take out. So we can't have every book published in the world, and can't have it housed here. But right now, opening up, I think it's 75% of public libraries in the province are using this system. So that just opens our residents' reach to a whole lot more collections. Wi-Fi usage here, you can see there's a big discrepancy. It's because in 2015 we started logging, we started tracking the usage of Wi-Fi in the library, and these were individual logins. So every time you walked into the library and you logged in on one of your mobile devices, we tracked it. And so now in 2017 it changed over to just tracking unique logins. So if you walk into the library 10 times a month and log in, it's only going to count once. So that's the discrepancy there. And public computers, you can see that they're increasing also. Contrary to public or to belief that everybody in 2018 has a home computer, we're finding that it's just increasing our public computer usage. Maybe people aren't buying public or desktop computers anymore because smartphones are so powerful now that they don't use a desktop computer, but smartphones can't do everything, right? So people are coming into the library to use the desktop computers and also having access to the software we have on those computers. And we've seen a huge jump in people using our public printing system, which is a mobile system, so you can send a print job from home or from your device in the library. And as Christine was talking about how libraries are changing, you can see that our program statistics and program attendance are really climbing also. So take a look at our 2018 budget. You can see here 67% of our income comes from the city, 16% from the regional district, and 7% from the province. On the expenses side, 71% of that is spent on salaries, 11% on facilities, so that includes utilities and janitorial services and some minor repairs, 9% on collections, which includes the cost of our online resources, books, DVDs, magazines, 1% goes to programming, and 5% to office management. Our 2019 budget, there's an overall increase of 2% to income and 2% to expenses. You'll see that operating income is up, and that is primarily due to our new printing system. Our income in that has doubled over the year. Operating grants, donations and fundraising, that's down a bit. Our primary donors are and fundraisers are the Friends of the Library, and also the library sells merchandise to boost its income. And we found that over the years, it's our cookbook and chocolate bar sales, and they've been slowly decreasing. So it's something that we need to rethink and really look at if it's an effective way for us to do fundraising. And our grants are down, projected to be down in 2019. 2018 was a great year for grants, and we received a lot of tech grants. And we just put it down a bit in 2019, but hopefully there'll be some more opportunities for us later in the year. Library management in expenses side, that increase is due to one line item under library management, and that is our transfer, what we call our Castlegar Library transfer. So Area H residents have access to or can become members to either the Castlegar or the Nelson Public Library. It's their choice there. But the money from Area H through library taxation that comes to it all comes to the Nelson Public Library. So we do a calculation with the Castlegar Public Library to see how many members in that area are Castlegar members and how many are Nelson Public Library members. So that fluctuates from year to year. It depends on who's living in the valley and who's using the libraries, and whether they work in Castlegar or that's where their kids go to school or swimming. So in 2019, the numbers are based on 2018, and we found that there are an increase in library membership, Castlegar library memberships. So that's why that difference is there. And other than that, there are very small increases. Different building operation, that's primarily due to the utility increases. And programs, we've put it up a little bit just to deal with all those programs and the people attending our programs. And strategic priorities in 2019, Christine touched on some of those that we plan on focusing for regarding community needs. In 2019, we're focusing on our digital equality and digital collections online, and that's really due to what we're seeing as a growth in the area. So we'll be focusing on that. Sorry. And actually, in the spring, the library started working with the Nelson and Area Economic Development Partnership to address digital equality. A number of issues were identified, and the library, it was also identified that the library can really play an integral role in addressing those issues. So that's why the focus here on digital equality and digital collections. And just this morning, actually, I submitted a CBT tech grant expression of interest for some equipment in 2019 and some funds for programming. So hopefully we'll be successful with that in helping address that community need. Spaces to Connect, Christine focused on that, about how we're really, how library services are changing, and that means the building and how we provide and offer services it also needs to change and adapt to that. We're finding that, we're doing our best to adapt our current space, and moving forward, I think that adaptability is really important, and that flexibility, so we can really be able to offer traditional services and new services also. And sustainability, Christine also touched on that, about funding, about, funding from the province has been stagnant since 2009, so there has been no increase. And also working with Area E Director to ensure somehow that those residents can receive universal access to the library, possibly through taxation. And yes, 2020 is the library's 100th anniversary, so we'll be focusing on that in 2019 also, as you can see here. So it was January 1920 that the bylaw passed to establish the library as a municipal library. And this diagram here, I just took it from a history on the Nelson Library, and I just found it was interesting to see all the different places that the library was situated. So in the first place, it was situated here on the corner of Ward and Baker. It was there from 1898 to 1900. It was called the Broken Hill Block. And the second home for the library was on Stanley and Victoria. And then it moved just across the street 2 years later. And that was called I don't know if I'm saying this right, the Sellis building. And then the Sellis house was across the street. And then they moved Kitty Corner to where I think is probably the Legion right now. And they were there for 4 years, and that was the YMCA building. Then they moved to the Annabelle Block, which was over here, and then to where the Capitol Theater is now. And they were there until 1937, at which time they moved to the Civic Theater. and they were there until 1992. There you go.
Kyle, you must remember when it was at the Green Annex.
Oh, you're so funny, Rick. I mean, Councillor Luchtenberg.
So, bit of a history of the library facility. 2019 challenges. I know we've touched on this in a number of our slides, but really primarily it is that provincial funding that's remained stagnant. I see this glaring typo here since 2009, not 2019. And working with Area E to contribute to library services, and also our facility. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that, we believe the library's priorities align well with a number of the city's goals. And your continued investment in the library ensures that all children in our community can develop early literacy skills to support their success in school and in life. Your investment also provides a digital infrastructure so that everyone in our community has publicly accessible connectivity and tools and resources to be digitally literate. Your investment supports the development of human capital in our community for long-term economic sustainability, and it also provides a safe and trusted gathering space that's open 50 hours a week, and it's accessible to all and everyone. Thank you.
All right, so some questions. Councillor Renwick.
Through the chair. Christine Terrian, the chief librarian, I love that.
Right. I know, it rhymes, right? Tracy Terrian, chief librarian, yes. I know. Makes me smile every time I say it.
Area E. So you're talking to an Area E resident.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Do they not contribute at all, or is it because they have this funny Area E South, Area E North,
Right.
with as far as the recreation complex goes?
Right.
Maybe you'd say what the other areas.
So do they not contribute at all, or do they just contribute from the south?
No, they do not contribute at all to library services through taxation. On the last 5-6 years, we've been receiving grants from Area E for specific things at the library, like to ensure that K-12 children have access to a free library membership, or sometimes some funding towards our public computer stations. So their residents may also access those, but it's not any regular funding. Area H and F do provide funding through taxation.
Does their funding then, let's call it their special funding, how does it compare with the funding from areas F and
Sure.
H?
So in 2018, Area F contributed close to like 89,000. Area H South contributed 63,000. And Area E, through special grants, contributed 8,500.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a material difference.
yeah. Okay.
And there's a balance in terms of, an asset which is meant to be public access, and, sometimes, and Tracy can speak to it specifically, but, having to also have difficult conversations with people because they're from Area E. And, there are constraints because of, the referendum and the choice that Area E made. But it has a real impact on the people. And I mean, the one positive, of course, is with the grant that we get, every year in varying amounts. It does at least support, I guess, trying to provide access to the school age children in terms of, even if they are from Area E, but the broader issue of Area E residents being able to access not only, of course, e-books and stuff, but, programming, digital, resources, et cetera, is a limitation.
Councillor Lautenberg.
Thank you. So, two things. A specific one. Why is the online library shrinking? they're digital assets. Why would they get smaller?
How do you mean? I'm sorry, I don't.
I
did
might not have understood the line, but it says the online library in 2017 there were 30,000 items, and now there are only 28,000 items.
Oh, I'm sorry, those aren't items, those are the amount that are being used.
Oh, okay.
Right, so it's increasing. People
Okay.
are starting to or people are using our online resources more.
As of October, it's
And
28,000.
yeah, exactly.
Got it.
So
Okay, I
that
was
makes
confused
sense,
about
yeah.
that. The second question is related to the core value of a library to the community. After your presentation before, we had a lively conversation about what role the library plays in the future. And I mentioned Wikipedia and would you be sort of a hub for Wikipedians in Nelson? But I was wondering, as your presentation today, that kind of maybe speaks to an old understanding of libraries, that you're sort of a community hub of knowledge and information. And it feels like a library's role is more of a social service, like in terms of digital equality, in terms of providing something more for, families or people who are sort of less, I don't know, don't have computers or need sort of supported childcare.
And I'll let Tracy, add in, but, really, I think the message here is actually it's all of the above. It's not, it's not moving into sort of niche areas. It's actually that the library is multi-pronged in terms of expectation, and it is a knowledge hub. That's a critical ongoing element, especially in a democratic society, to continue to be a knowledge hub. But also on the other side, these other roles of, seed libraries or tool libraries, those services or programming, as well as the creativity stations, for instance. That's something that some libraries have, which are really, resources where people can come in either individually or in groups and create, whether it's, music or, technology-focused stuff. I mean, Tracy would have way more detail than I. I live at this level, but, that's what a library of the future is. And when we talk about how you vision that from a city and, a Nelson Public Library perspective, having not only the vision, but the right sort of space in which to hold and the partners in which you want to partner up with to create that, could be a real jewel for the city, over the long term, if you created that type of space with all those elements as part of it. Not to say that each one necessarily has to be housed 100% or, there's ways of partnering in different ways, but those are some of the conversations on a go forward that I think we really want to have. Anyways, Tracy can speak to the specifics more than I can, but.
No, and libraries for sure have been and always will be that great equalizer, right? So we're providing resources and a space and potential, I guess, for everyone. So it doesn't matter if you do have a computer or you have a parent that can take you to the library to access these things. We're just open for everyone, and we'll meet everyone at their level too, right? And how in this age where information is exploding, right? And we have access to all that. We're there also to help you navigate through that information and help you with, your Google search, even something simple as that. People, get those 1 million hits, and how do I know which is the best place for me to go? And I mean, the internet certainly, like I said, has exploded the information, but the core of accessing information and making it accessible to everyone really hasn't changed for libraries since the very beginning to what's happening now. And Christine touched on it too. And I think I tried to also earlier, is that we're no longer gatekeepers of information, right? We're not here to say, yes, here's this book for you, and you can take I think this is what you need. We're providing tools and resources to help you create information even and share knowledge. So people publishing ebooks, we have lots of writers here in our community, and sometimes they just get stuck as to, so where do I go from here, right? How do I publish this ebook? Where's it going to be housed? Those are things that libraries are helping individuals with.
So, sorry, just a quick follow-up. I'm still trying to sort of boil it down to a simple explanation to somebody in the street, or if John in our deliberation says, "Why do we have a library again?" I can say in a really quick little snippet. So, if I got a degree in library science today, what would I be getting a degree in? Would it be part of like sort of social service again, this equality, sort of leveling the playing field?
I know you're getting, you're, a bit of everything, again, management for sure, but it's information technology, right?
Right.
We're managing information and making it accessible.
Right,
So
okay.
even how, Dewey, Mr. Dewey started the Dewey Decimal System of organizing information to make it easily, I know I keep saying this, but easily accessible, right? And so librarians continue to do that in a digital age also.
Okay.
But again, is shifting it to providing tools for people to create information, and then for us to be able to house it and make it accessible. And that, yeah, I see where you're getting with the social services part, because we're talking about it's open and access to everybody, and it's a public space, and people don't need to buy anything to be welcomed in it.
And there's a component of
yeah,
that.
there's certainly a component.
But there's also
to
an
that.
arts component. There's
an arts
knowledge
component,
it's
to
like,
technology, yeah.
yeah.
I guess if you look at your community, right, what's happening here, that's really represented in the library, because it's our goal to make sure the needs of the community are fulfilled, their information needs. So that's why you might see it, all different levels, arts and social services, and technology.
Yeah, information's pretty broad
Yeah.
in terms of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Page?
As per usual, I've got a out of left field one. So, as I was, and I excuse everyone, but I'm just getting into a cough. Kind of one of the things that jumped out at me is as the value proposition for the library is that space component, that place, like when you're looking between the difference of the online world and books you can buy from Amazon, it's that meeting place, and a lot of your programs are about connecting people and knowledge and that's why you go to, your small revenue stream that's begun out of the printing is speaking to the people coming there to do work because they don't really have a space. I was wondering, as you look out to the other examples of libraries that are done really well, or libraries that have other opportunities, have tried different things, a cafe, have you guys ever looked
Certainly,
into
there's
a
lots
cafe?
of libraries with cafes in them.
Yeah.
And yes, and a revenue stream, or an opportunity for other social
Partners.
enterprises to run a cafe in a library. Yeah.
Okay,
But
that's-
it's a space, right?
Just-
yeah.
ju-
Yeah,
just
we could,
space.
We could take out my office, maybe. Put a little
Get that little
cafe.
beanery just rolled over to that.
Yeah.
It was in my notes, but
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
yeah, definitely those things. I think it goes to the atmosphere and the ambiance of what a library is, right? And that's the thing that is shifting, right? It's not the walk into and be very, very quiet. Walk and go, I mean, that's still a part of it for some people, right? But there's just like way more than that. And if you imagine, again, a group of youth who want to, whatever, make some sort of, record, I'll use the old word, I don't know what they call it, but music thing, or create an app together, or, and just imagine that they would have, be able to get their little coffee and muffin and go into their common area, which is set up for them, which, I mean, Tracy's even talked about, and I don't know if they do this in some of the other libraries, but if you had sort of a creation space, potentially it could be something that you rent out after hours to other people who like professional musicians, or, there's just a whole bunch of possibilities here, and, I get excited thinking about it. And, you know, I think that's where we could go if we sort of open our minds and think about, you know, what could be the vision for the Nelson Library in, you know, 10 years or so. Anyways, I could keep going, but I'll stop.
Well, through the chair, that leads me to another question. Just coming off of the rec commissions, one of the things that the NDCC is doing is managing the rental space around the area. Have you guys, there's lots of different kind of purpose-built spaces, and I think there's a need for someone to facilitate the actual management of people being able to discover that. Have you guys ever considered having a little bit of a hub and spoke model? Having an inventory of the spaces that are around and people just don't know they're there, or how to rent them, or who to contact.
I think that's part of the library board's work plan in 2019.
Okay.
And certainly, I would appreciate if there's any particular contact person or people that anyone here thinks that we should actually reach out to or connect with. I'm very happy to have that information passed on.
Yeah, and hopefully next year when we report back, we might have some of these ideas that Christine was talking about, creation spaces, possibly even up and running in our library here with again, adapting the current space to be able to offer these types of services to our residents.
At least in some
in some form.
limited
Yeah.
way.
All right, any other questions? Mayor Dooley?
One of the things that's come to my mind many times is, if you were starting over, what would you do? Because a lot of times you end up working within a footprint that may be adequate or not. But, you know, it's traditional, this is how a library's set up. But what's, apart from some of the newer ones you see built in some of these big cities where there are more monuments than anything else, like, how would you build a library today based on what you're hearing from council members and your own presentation? It's clearly shifting.
I think the term is adaptability and flexibility. So you know, shelving units all on casters, so we can push them aside when we need to have a big gathering of people. Rooms that transform, right? This can be part of the library, and then we open the doors or close the doors, and then it can be a private space for people, individuals or groups to work together. Of course, technology for the library to be wired, so we're not have tripping hazards of people trying to plug in their devices here and there. So I think that primarily is it. We need spaces that are adaptable and flexible, so we can quickly change to meet the needs of the community. And
So if I were to look on the internet, an example at a new library in Kimberley, what would it look like? Like it was built this year?
this year, well, we actually, Annie, who is our vice chair, and she's the chair of the Kootenai Library Federation, we toured the East Kootenays for meetings this fall, and the Radium Hot Spring and Invermere have brand new buildings, but they were shared spaces, really more community centers. Community halls. Concert halls. So again, it was, removing a wall, and all of a sudden there was a stage there and this big gathering space. So the library could do programming in there, but the community could come together after hours when the library wasn't open, and it turned into a stage. Or they had community kitchens connected to it too, so they could rent those halls for weddings or different things like that.
And there's a much closer example too, which is the City of Trail,
Mhm.
which
That's
has a
the newest
brand
one.
new,
Yeah.
beautiful facility. And I actually, just because I used to work with him, I had reached out to, at the time, Mayor Mike Martin, and he gave me a lot of insight into how they managed to successfully get to the point, with the City of Trail, and it was also a partnered facility between the Historical Society and the Trail, I guess, Public Library. And so there's a lot of good insights when and if we get a little farther down the road. But you know, if you guys are ever in Trail, definitely. And that might, you know, that might even, it's a beautiful new facility, and it's also got the Historical Society. So the space might look a little bit different than what we visioned, but anyways. And we don't have $1.6 million from tech, but I could try and work on that, I guess.
I was just trying to think,
We've got traction on demand.
I'm just trying to think around,
Right.
around what, who designs the ideal library today, you know? Because it seems as though, and you went through the whole list of what the library has been. And it hasn't necessarily moved from one place to the other because it was the right place.
No, yeah, it wasn't.
Because for a number of reasons, right?
Right.
And even when it moved in there, it was identified that maybe this is not the right place either, right?
Right.
And even when the renovation happened, you know, clearly that could have probably been done different also to create more workspace. But, so I'm just thinking in terms of moving forward into the future, when you hear, as an example, from Councillor Page talking about other groups looking for space, and, you know, because we tend to go off on our own and build our own buildings, and there's other people doing the same thing, and pretty soon you're collecting all this money and you're dividing it up between 2 or 3 groups, and you're all ending up with the wrong space at the end of the day, whereas maybe there's an opportunity to look at a different model and you know, taking into account maybe potentially encouraging some of the other folks that are not currently funding our facility to be more proactive in doing that. If it was sort of I mean, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I'm just thinking sometimes the horse is dead and you have to get off, you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's dead by any means, but I'm just saying that if you had a new car, if you had a new canvas, like what would you paint?
And shared facilities are
Yeah,
definitely, you know, one of the things from a board perspective we'd be looking at, and you know, really an efficiency of common services and cost. I mean, it's definitely a factor.
Because even the presentation prior to you around the cinema, you know, like,
Some
I mean, they
synergies
almost, they
there.
were next door to each other at one time, but based on what they've brought to the table tonight, you could almost see a real connection there.
You know, it's, yeah.
For like, as Councillor Luchtenberg was talking about the whole digital age and the whole new, you know, I know when I want to do some things nowadays, and I like to think I know a lot about some stuff, but in actual fact, I just simply go on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, you want to build a new table, just YouTube, and there it is. You don't go to the library. There was a time, and I have downstairs, I have a number of books that how to do it, how to fix it, and all that kind of stuff, but you don't even go there anymore. You know, so.
But in some libraries, they're bringing people together to teach each other
Exactly.
how to fix things too, right? Repair cafes or, yeah, so there's lots of models for different library facilities, for sure. In Vancouver too, their latest library there is in the downtown east side, and the lower level is the library, and they did in partnership with the YWCA. So above that is housing
Yeah.
for women and children. So yeah, lots of great models. But certainly, yeah, it would be great if we could build some purpose-built, but that would be about flexibility and
Yeah,
adaptability.
exactly. Yeah. But I have to say, you know, that it's definitely a hub. There's no question about it. It's probably, with the exceptions of maybe the odd intersection on Baker, that's probably the busiest crosswalk in town.
It's a busy crosswalk,
So
yeah.
that's what it is, and it's marvelous, really.
It is.
When you think of a small community like ours that can support those kind of numbers, it's amazing.
It is, yeah. Yeah, we see a lot of people through the doors, for sure. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I just want to ask one.
Thank you.
If anybody else, if we're all, are we done? Did you want to ask any more questions? Good. I just want to ask one final question to you. How long do you think you have in your current location before you feel, you know, sort of hemmed in, or
I
is there a time frame, or are you just?
I think we're already starting to feel that, because when we, you know, we need more to, not more, but I'm thinking it in towards funding, and it's not funding, you know, we're doing fine there, we could always do more, I don't want to say that, but, you know, it's the chicken and egg thing, right? And because we don't have the additional space, then we can't move forward.
Right.
And we're stretched, you know, every time we look at a chair and go, do we need that chair? Let's move it and try to bring
Need a
something
folding
else
chair.
in, or a folding chair, yeah. So, you know, I'd say in the next couple of years, Jesse, that,
Okay.
yeah, we feel like we'd stagnate, that we couldn't progress.
Good to know.
That's why it's part of our current strategic plan.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
For that very
Yeah.
reason.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that
Thank you.
very
Thank you
informative
for listening.
presentation.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. No, it's late.
So, is there any late items to bring forward?
It's already late.
Late items? All right. So I just need a motion, a resolution to adjourn. I need a motion.
Second.
2. And all in favor? Thank you very much.
Good job.
Good job, Jesse.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Actually be interested in that presentation, what this discussion goes.